Hi guys, welcome back to Nyx Reads, and it's finally time to talk to you guys about my favorite books of 2022. I read almost 100 books last year and I'm presenting you my top 8 and additionally 9 honorable mentions. My main goal in this video is to add books to your TBR. I hope you walk away from this video having at least one book in mind that you find interesting. So please leave this video a like if you enjoyed it and feel free to subscribe if you love bookish content. Starting with my first honorable mention, it is a thriller. It's The Chestnut Man by Søren Sveistrup. This book gave me literal nightmares. Whenever I would read this book before going to bed, I did not have a good night's sleep because it is very intense, quite ruthless, and very graphic. If you've read quite a few mediocre thrillers lately and you finally want to find something that will wow you, then go Scandinavian. This is the book to go. In this book, mutilated dead women are found with a chestnut figurine besides them that for some weird reason have fingerprints on them from a girl that went missing over a year ago, and it seems to be completely unrelated, but we all know there must be some kind of connection there. Jumping from an intense thriller to a cozy mystery, The Maid by Nita Prose, I have a full 5-minute, so technically very short review of this book up on my channel. Check that out if you want to hear more. What made this book so special to me is that Molly, the main character, just had my heart from the first page. I felt everything alongside with her. I was so mad at all the people taking advantage of her and being mean to her and cruel. And whenever she was happy or there was, something hopeful happening to her, I was right there with her. In this story, Molly is a neurodiverse maid working in a grand hotel where she gets involved in a crime that happens in one of the suites. And unfortunately, because she behaves differently from other people, she falls under suspicion. My next honorable mention is The Secret Lives of Church Ladies by Disha Filio. And this is incredibly special to me because this completely changed my mind about short story collections last year. Every single story packed a punch and was so emotional. These are amazing Black stories told with, as the title suggests, a lot of secrets from churchgoers. Then I have A Certain Slant of Light by Laura Whitcomb, and this is a complete surprise, I would say, because this is essentially a forbidden ghost love story. This is super angsty, very bingeable, and a hashtag sad girl book. This is definitely a more mature story, but if you were a sucker for Twilight when you were younger, then I think you will binge this book. This is a tragic story about a female ghost that roams a school. Suddenly, one of the pupils actually sees and notices her and can talk to her, and things go from there. Another surprise is Committed by Elizabeth Gilbert. This is a nonfiction and the first ever book I think that I read for pleasure, where I put tabs on the pages while reading it because this gave me so much food for thought. I absolutely loved the prose, and as the title suggests, this is about a skeptic making peace with marriage. As my fantasy honorable mention, I picked Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. This made me feel incredibly confused, very surprised, and all in all, it is a great fantasy novel with a lot of suspense. This is about our main character Piranesi being stuck in a house, a fantastical house that is almost like a labyrinth. Next I have Pure Color by Canadian author Sheila Hady. This book made me feel as if I was an art student who understands abstract artwork. It feels like you're tripping on something when you're reading this. This is an odd little book about love and loss and world creation. Then I have a middle grade honorable mention, which is Starfish by Lisa Phipps, and this is special because it is actually a novel in verse. This was sad and very hopeful at the same time and inspiring. I definitely shed some tears, and it really made me think of being younger and being bullied for my weight or how I looked by family members included. The story is about Ellie. She's a fabulous big girl. This is about the relationship to herself, to her parents, making new friends, being in school, and also finding a good therapist that can help her. And my last honorable mention is a classic, who would have thought. It's 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I was so impressed by this classic. This is the mother of magical realism. This is the long story, as the title suggests, of the Buendia family. It's a multi-generational unfolding and so many names in here that are so similar. So if you tackle this book, my top tip for you is to put together some kind of like, how do you call these? Like a family tree. I added the names as I was progressing in the story, and this was honestly so helpful for me because they all essentially have the same name, but just in a slight variation. And with this, I always knew who they were talking about. The fantastical elements in here were so weird, but very entertaining. Those were all of my honorable mentions, books that positively surprised me. And now I'm gonna give you guys my top 8 books that I read last year. And honestly, these are not in any particular order just because they're also from all different kinds of genres. So it's kind of hard to compare. And if you've been watching all of my videos this year or my wrap-ups, then none of these will come to you as a surprise. On the other hand, if you're new here and you want to hear more about all of the books that I'm mentioning in this video, please feel free to subscribe and go back to my wrap-ups, because those are the videos where I talk in a bit more detail about all of the books that I mentioned in this video. Absolutely no surprise to see this nonfiction in this list, My Life in France by Julia Child. I distinctly remember that when I read the last page of this book and I closed it up, I felt so emotional because it was almost like saying goodbye to a very dear friend. This was so inspiring, so incredibly interesting to read about her life, and the food writing was just so good. I mean, I was thinking about whipping up a dish and trying out a new recipe with every single page of the book that I read, essentially. So Julia Child is the American woman who essentially brought French cuisine, French cooking to the States. And this recounts her time living in France, predominantly in Paris, with her husband, Paul. This is her discovering later in life her love for cooking and enrolling in the Cordon Bleu school and subsequently writing a cookbook. I'm sure this is going to stick with me as one of my top 5 or even top 3 memoirs that I've ever read. Then I have a pretty well-known book that I finally got around to read last year, Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. This is a dystopian staple, a classic for a very good reason. My heart was aching for these characters. It just felt so heavy throughout the story. This is the story of Kathy, Ruth, and Tommy. They're friends who all grow up together at the Heilsham Academy on the English countryside, and this academy holds a lot of secrets that in the beginning these kids aren't aware of themselves. They don't know exactly why they're there, just something is special about them and they get special treatment by all the guardians. They grow up in a very secretive and mysterious environment and very isolated. One of the consequences that this has is they are not really capable of processing emotions like you and me. And what that led to is something will happen in this story. They may not react to it as you would, so you as the reader feel all of the emotions and have the reactions instead for them. Super brilliant, definitely a must read for anybody, I would say, and touches on so many important subjects like humanity, science, and ethics. A great favorite that really surprised me, and I didn't know a lot going into this book, is Pet by Akwaeke Emezi. I felt scared reading this book for many different reasons, and if you've read it, you probably know what I mean. Our main character is Jam, who's a trans girl who one day goes into her mom's art studio, and out of one of her newest paintings, a creature emerges, and this fantastical creature tells Jam that it is there for a reason. It is there to hunt down a monster. And let me tell you, that monster, when you learn what it turns out to be, is truly horrendous. It will scare you, but not in a way that you would expect. Like pretty much any book on this top 8 list, I recommend it to anybody. Completely unexpected. Don't bother trying to understand the plot before you start reading. Next, I have The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. This is beloved by so many people, and now I know why. I can genuinely say that this is probably one of the best love stories I've read to date. I cannot remember rooting for two people being together as much as I was when I was reading this book. And I cannot describe to you the emotions that I felt reading the very, very, very last sentence of this book. Please don't read it if you haven't read the story, because it won't really mean anything to you, but that sentence made me start bawling my eyes out. It's a story about star-crossed lovers essentially, and I just needed them to be together so badly. This is a retelling of Achilles' story from the point of view of Patroclus, who is a boy that grew up on the court of Achilles' family. So either if you're into Greek mythology or if you just want to read the love story of the century, then you have to pick up this book. I have 2 more nonfiction books on this list, and I'm just realizing now that 3 out of the 8 are nonfiction, which is unheard of. Another must-read, and must-read especially for any food lover out there, is Taste by Stanley Tucci. I enjoyed this so much. I really recommend listening to this as an audiobook if you can access it, although I will get myself also a physical copy for all of the recipes in there. The food really came to life in this one, the food and all of the ingredients. Stanley Tucci tells his memoir through food, through recipes, and we really get to know him from a different angle and get to know his family. I have to say that I also just read this at the exact right time, because I picked this up right when I was traveling to Italy, and because this is about Italian food, it was just such a perfect timing. So if in any way you love food writing, you're subscribed to the Bon Appetit YouTube channel, then definitely pick up this book. And I've already made the zucchini pasta that he mentions in this book from the Amalfi Coast twice. The last must-read nonfiction that I want to mention to you guys is Invisible Women. I could not shut up about this book while I was reading it. I was telling anybody around me who was willing to listen what I was learning, because this book made me so mad and sad and angry, and just, it educated me. The tagline is "Data bias in a world designed for men." So this is about the so-called gender data gap. This is about our world where the male is seen as the default human being. And this explains to you what happens if you don't collect gender disaggregated data. And each chapter deep dives into a different topic. So it can go anywhere from, let's say, car safety. For example, the male being the default human, how cars are way less safe for women if you're in an accident because of that, to the medical field of what it means for pharma, to even urban planning. This goes into why gender neutral does not equal gender equal. This is a must read again for anybody. I know I'm saying this about every single book on this list, but that is why they're my favorites. And of course, I cannot leave out The Last House on Needless Street by Catriona Ward. This book literally kept me up until 2 a.m. I just needed to know what was happening. There was so many twists and turns, especially, okay, I don't want to spoil one, but a few very significant ones where my jaw was on the floor. It was nothing I have read before, and I've read quite a few mysteries and thrillers in my life. This is, I think, more in the horror category, but still. Just things that I did not see coming from 10 miles away. This book really did blow my mind. How do I even describe the plot? This book is about a literal house, and in connection to that, we are looking at a serial killer, at a stolen child. We have multiple POVs, and one of them is actually from a pet. I think that's also a good indicator of how unique this story is. Please put this on your TBR. That book is super intense. So for my last favorite, I'm gonna jump to something that just made me feel so warm and fuzzy on the inside and was just the absolute perfect or almost perfect Christmas read for me. It's The Holiday Swap by Maggie Knox. Put this on your TBR for next Christmas, for the next holiday season, if you haven't picked it up yet. It is so good. It has everything I wanted. It has a swap. It has twins, Charlie and Cassie, who live two completely different lives. Charlie is a famous celebrity chef who judges a baking competition show. How awesome is that? And Cassie runs a family bakery in Colorado. They're very well known for their sourdough starter. One thing leads to the other and they have to swap lives pretending to be the other one. There's great family stories in here, some Insta love that doesn't feel too Insta. I was actually rooting for the couples, and cute animals. And because you're switching back and forth between the two cities, you have like the glitz and glamour and fun from a baking competition show set, but then also like the small town vibes with people in the town who are all up in your business, but at the end of the day just want the best for you. Such a great read. If you're a fan of The Holiday with Cameron Diaz and Kate Winslet, I think you will really like this book, or The Princess Switch with Vanessa Hudgens from Netflix. So there you have it. These were all of my honorable mentions plus my best of 2022 books. And leave me a comment if you've read any of these books yourself. Some of these are pretty well known, so chances are you have picked one of them up already. Do you agree with me, or do you think that they were total garbage? You can keep an eye out for my worst of 2022 books, which I'm probably gonna upload next, so feel free to subscribe if you're into videos like that as well. And thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys next time. Bye.